Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general mid-month reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon and Ascendant for the month of October. It's going to be shorter, hopefully, than the main monthly reads because it's just covering that 2-week period from the 15th to the 31st of October. And to that end, I'm going to try not to pull any clarifiers, keep it nice and short. I know this reading is late. I am deeply grateful to you for waiting for it. I appreciate that. So, I'm changing the format somewhat this month because what I usually do is pull 3 cards for your current energy, 3 cards for what's coming towards you, and 3 cards of advice. Now that doesn't really sit very well with me, and it hasn't, because divination isn't really my area of interest when it comes to tarot cards. You may have noticed fundamentally what I'm interested in is you, in the here and now. And to that end, you know, what's coming towards you is coming towards you, whatever. I feel like my job is kind of putting you in the best possible place to receive or deal with or, you know, go after whatever it is that is there in front of you at some point in the future. And so what I would rather do is look for the lesson, you know? So to that end, what I'm going to do is make that middle row actually a point of introspection. It is looking for the lesson. What is the energy that you are in at the moment, trying to teach you? Because I believe everything is a teaching moment if you detach enough to look for the lesson. So that's what we're going to do. I hope that that makes sense. So let's have a look and see. What is Gemini's current energy, please? Well, we've got 2 cards together. We've got the 6 of Wands and the Sun. Both cards of Leo, interestingly. So I was just... The Wild Unknown is such an incredibly beautiful deck. When I pull cards from it, they're just so striking. I could just really draw my eye. 2 more cards for Gemini's current energy, please. Oh, mixed in with the 10 of Wands. Interesting. And the 3 of Pentacles. Speaking of teaching moments, we've got Justice at the bottom of the deck. And it's followed by the Fool. Now, these are cards of Libra. And we are just in Libra at the moment, in Libra season. And Aries. And of course Mars is in retrograde at the moment. I'm going to shut this window because traffic apparently is a thing. So, whenever I see the Justice card, I'm always kind of pulled towards interpretations of you know, teaching and learning and all that sort of thing, because as well as talking about justice and fairness and equilibrium and balance, this also talks to me about karma. The releasing of karma. Those cats look pretty judgmental there. The funny thing is, what's going on here feels a little scattered in some ways, because I am going to pull a clarifier, even though I didn't want to. I'm going to do it anyway. This feels very resolutely like your energy at the moment, right? It's quite joyful. Actually, you know, we've got a sense of you having risen above some adversity, whatever adversity that may be. And, you know, it might have been a one-off event that's occurred recently, but I feel like it's not. I feel like it's something much more elevated than that, particularly when we have these 2 major cards at the bottom of the deck here, right? This is a sense of you having risen beyond the things that you had been kind of mired in for a very long time. And by very long time, I mean we could be talking years, we could possibly be talking decades. And the Sun card has a myriad of different meanings. Like I said, they're both cards of Leo. But the Sun for me is the counterpart to the Moon. And the Moon is all about the internal space for me, right? It's about the things that are hidden from you, from your consciousness, right? The things that kind of need pulling out and integrating with. The Sun, therefore, comes to mean the things that are seen, observed in your consciousness in some way, right? This feels like an elevation of consciousness here that you've experienced. I think 2020 in some ways has released you from a lot of things that you felt bound by before, right? But the other thing that the sun can talk about is your inner child, right? And it's funny because it's almost in conflict with the previous interpretation, because you would think that the inner child would be covered by the moon because it was hidden and you were not aware of it. But it does. And, you know, both interpretations, I think, hold validity. This feels like a connective process that you have undergone, and as you have uncovered your inner child and you've pulled all the shit that was on top of it away, so you've been able to elevate. Now what bothers me is this 10 of Wands here, but maybe it doesn't bother me because actually, you know, I mean, that could well be this here. And so rather than being bothered, actually, I'm entirely delighted, because we're just talking about this elevation above the things that had, you know, been keeping you trapped, keeping you restricted, burdening you in some way, right? This looks like it's this. Now, rather than talking about this coming back in, you know, which could have been a perfectly legitimate way to interpret this, what it feels like to me is that place, whatever the 10 of Wands signifies for you, is something that is like, what you're feeling now isn't just words hard. Sorry, Mercury's in retrograde and it makes talking really hard sometimes. This isn't just a temporary reprieve. That's what I'm going for here, right? You could think that perhaps, you know, you've got over this and it's all right, but at some point you're going to find something else and you might accidentally, you know, spear one of your wings or something like that. It doesn't feel like that to me, because this is a 10, right? It's the ultimate card of burden and frustration and not being able to see the way out of anything. You know, it can talk about humiliation and betrayal and all those kind of awful, terrible things. It can talk about people literally putting swords in your back, but the important thing is that it's a 10. And when this card appears, it is an indication that the worst is now past, right? In the standard Rider-Waite, you have someone who is lying prone on the floor with 10 swords on their back, right? And that they've been left for dead, unquestionably. But the protagonist's face is turned towards the horizon, and at the horizon what we see is the sun starting to rise. It's that kind of, you know, it's darkest before the dawn. And it is. It's always that coldest point of the night as well. It's just before the sun starts to come up. It's no temporary reprieve, Gemini. Like, this is closed, this is gone, and you are elevated above it now. We have this 3 of Pentacles, and this is interesting because we've got that mountain rising up in front there, right? And it looks kind of imposing. It looks like it would be challenging to negotiate in some way, but we've got these 3 Pentacles here, beautifully coloured with rainbow. And it's my cooperation and collaboration card, right? It's about coming together with people who are, you know, of a like mind, a shared vision, who want to, you know, build something is usually the received wisdom of it, because we've usually got, you know, a mason and a monk and another dude kind of, you know, doing cathedral things, building something that will last for a long time. But what if it is navigating something that you alone would find difficult, and someone else alone would find it difficult, but together with a shared skill set or just shared emotional support, you would be able to get over that much more easily. You know, in terms of challenging imagery, that is challenging. Right, it's hugely challenging. There's no getting away from that. But you have somehow managed to negotiate that alone. A mountain is challenging imagery, but it somehow looks nowhere near as sinister as what's gone on here, right? And it kind of feels like as within, so without. Like, you've conquered what was going on inside of you, and that was really the hard part. That was the difficult part. Anything now that is in front of you, it feels like with the assistance of other people, with connection, you know, with finding your tribe potentially, you are now able to navigate external situations. We've got the Two of Cups as well, in a way that you might not have been able to do before. Just notice the Justice card is at the bottom of the deck here. So it's interesting. I can kind of see it leaning towards a lesson already, because you've got the Page of Swords at the bottom of the deck, and he always talks to me about changing your thinking on things, right, Jed? Like opening yourself up to new ideas, new ways of seeing things. I always think it's like the first year philosophy student. He's finished his A-levels, goes off to uni, and then in the first term absolutely has his mind blown because he's introduced to concepts that he's never come across before in his life, Opening your mind up to things. With people who share your value system, with people who can support you emotionally. Tell me that's Three of Pentacles, please. Yeah. You're leaving difficult times behind, Gemini, in a lot of ways. And I don't mean that I genuinely, and please don't think for a second that I am saying this, I genuinely don't mean that things will never be difficult again, because part of what life is difficulties, right? It's challenges, it's things being put in front of you. If you see everything as a teaching moment, as I do, then at the point at which there are no more challenges to be given to you, then what is the point of you being here? There's none. You should never ever stop learning. But what you've gone through recently feels like such a dramatic transformation of not only the way that you think, but the way that you feel about things and the way you feel wearing your own skin, right? There's a level of comfort here implied with who you are. It's like you own every single bit of it. And that's huge. Making those kinds of changes inside is enormous. And once you have done things like that, once you have, you are the butterfly here, Gemini. Once you've got to this point, there's almost an excitement about challenges coming up in front of you, because you innately understand now that there is this lesson, the contained within. But it seems like now it's time for you to turn your focus outward and look towards people that you can help, that can help you. I don't know, coming together, right? This seems to be the energy that you're sitting in at the moment, because you're moving away from the difficult method that you used to use to process stuff. I think a lot of you are used to internalize an awful lot of things, and this could have found its expression in a million ways, but internalizing other people's pain, other people's reactions to you, and then using that as the frame within which you understand who you are is, well, as well as being bollocks, frankly, because it's not true, it's not who you are, it's just other people's perception of you. It's prevented you from finding your authenticity for quite a long time, and it's almost like that small realization that you had that it was bollocks, going off other people's ways of doing things and internalizing whatever it was that they were throwing at you, has just opened your eyes to a million new things, a million new ways of doing things. And there's an excitement here with you. So while I think that we may have just completely uncovered the lesson there, I'm going to pull the cards anyway. But I think I've said this probably 9 times out of all the readings that I did for this period. And the cards that came out really surprised me. So let's not speak to previously. What is the lesson here? Wow. Wow. We've got the Daughter of Cups, which is the Page. We've got Judgment. We've got the Hierophant. And at the bottom of the deck, we've got the High Priestess. Now, I really like this because I think the Hierophant and the High Priestess together. In fact, there are a lot of cards here that speak about this. The Hierophant and the High Priestess together speak to me about spiritual leadership, but in whatever way that occurs. So it can well be spiritual teaching, or it can be being the living embodiment of that which you wish to teach others, you know, so they learn by example. What have we got under here? Wow, see, really powerful card of spirituality, right? But also balance, because it's a 2, you know, so it's very internal. The card immediately after it is the 6 of Pentacles, right? There's a sense of balance both in your material world and in your spiritual world, which is now ready to kind of, I don't want to say exactly leak out, but it does feel like it's leaking. It's almost like you can't contain it any longer. We've got the 9 of Cups underneath there, right? You take responsibility for you, right? There's responsibility for your own happiness, understanding your motivations, your drives, working out what it is that makes you happy, and then going after that, right? It's, yeah, Father of Wands. I just wanted to see what was on the top. Father of Wands, literally living that life, being the embodiment of that which you wish to see in the world, and teaching thereby by example. Now, it could well be that some of you have a spiritual practice that you are now ready to bring out into the world, right? You're ready to maybe make this your vocation. That's possible, right? And if you are, then what it is that you have been trying to learn, or what this energy has been trying to show you at this time, is, I feel, is about the confidence that you have something that the world needs, right? And we all do. We just need to work out what it is. And some of us know what it is, but we have no confidence in it, right? And that's your ego talking. That's you trying to sabotage yourself and all of this. But there's such release and liberation here from old modes of thinking, old ways of doing things, old ways of feeling about the world, feeling about yourself almost, that with that liberation comes then the confidence, right? Remember that we had the Fool at the bottom of the deck underneath the Justice card, right? It's about trusting that what you feel, what your intuition is telling you to do, is the right thing at this time. Now, we'll go back to here. We've got the Page of Cups. This is super, super important, because for me it's a card of Pisces, but I don't think it really actually has any kind of specific correspondence, but there's something inherently Piscean about it. And for me, I often interpret it as an apology, right? Because pages are messengers, and it's small messages of love, and small messages of love. So an apology could well be one of those things. But actually, I often see it as a new, gentle approach to the way that you deal with your own emotional place, right? And it is characterized by forgiveness. It is characterized by compassion, starting with you first, in a way that you haven't before, right? I spoke about how you internalized things a lot, and I think that a lot of Geminis, and this is the thing, right? Because you're often an easy target because you're Gemini and you like to speak, and I think for a lot of you, you don't really necessarily know exactly what it is that you think until you start verbalizing it to somebody else, and then, you know, but you've got that, you know, the sharp kind of, it's almost like language is the way in which you interpret the world around you, right? So by definition, talking a lot is something that you like to do, but also by extension, it means that you are often an easy target. And I think that over the years you have been an easy target for a lot of people, and in that way, so you've been presented with a view of yourself which you have then internalized, and you have made your reality, right? Because you chose to follow it, because you didn't really know any difference. What's happened is a separation from that now, right? And now you view yourself with compassion and love, because actually that's what you deserve. But it's also how you would like other people to treat you, and it's all part of the message that you're bringing out into the world. Then we've got the Judgment card. Can we just take a second to look at these two cards together? Right? When I said straight off, when I first got the cards out and I was looking at them, obviously the sun is always, like, it's a beautiful card, and I love the colours because I'm a fucking Leo, and that just says joy to me as a Leo, right? But what really struck me was not just the colour, but the position of the butterfly. I was really drawn to it. The similarity in the shapes there, in the symbols, in the way that these creatures are moving here is really important. And you're going from what feels like, in some ways, a relatively minor success that you've had in some way that you've dealt with your internal space, which then, as we've gone along, we've discovered is actually kind of huge, because you're not going back to this ever again, right? You have now elevated above that, and whatever that is what you were internalizing for such a long time. But we've now got a major arcana manifestation of exactly that energy, right? A peaceful dove coming up, and part of it is, I really genuinely feel, it is relinquishing any sense of judgment that you felt by anybody else before in the past. You're just kind of letting it go, right? Because it's not important. It isn't a thing. And you may have perpetuated this judgment from other people inside you for much, much longer than they even considered it, right? Now, we are the centre of our own planets, right? Our own world. Because obviously we are, right? The centre of the own universe. But sometimes what we do is we think that other people spend much more time thinking about us, judging us, and deciding we're terrible people than they actually give over at all. Lots of people are prone to making sharp, nasty judgments about people, and then literally just forgetting about it, never really considering it beyond that. But the problem is that if they've ever addressed that to you, you took that and you took it to heart, and you then used it as thread that built the tapestry of Gemini, of who you are. And it's not who you are, right? So you are now releasing yourself from that altogether. And we've got this Hierophant card here. This is a card of Taurus. I should just say that there's something inherently Scorpionic about that for me, right? And we are literally on the brink of Scorpio season, and Mercury is in retrograde in Scorpio at the moment. So the point of that Mercury retrograde energy is to do that deep work. It is about those things coming out that maybe is not comfortable with. And it's just not to say that you've been a victim your entire life, Gemini, because you have, through trauma conditioning or whatever, chosen to take on board what other people have told you who you were. We all have a choice, but we have to notice that we are making that choice, and often people don't. That's where the internalization occurs, right? You're letting go of all of that. And now we have the Hierophant. This sense of you teaching spiritually coming through really strong, Gemini. Really strong. The High Priestess does not divulge, really. She's not one for active. She's a very passive card, and she's all about the internal space. She's about the internal knowing, right? She's channeling things, yes, but she's actually always usually depicted as a pillar card, just as Justice is as well. But there's a comfort with your inner space. Like, you have wisdom now that you did not have before, perhaps as recently as the beginning of 2020, right? Like, you've got that now. And the High Priestess is the internal expression of the internal space. The Hierophant then becomes the external expression of the knowledge that is received from the High Priestess, right? It's about taking a message and giving it to others. It's about teaching others, whether by your actions or by your words or by your business, right? Whether it could well be about attracting people to you in order that you may make it your life's work to be able to help them. Yeah? I'm going to pull one more card for the Hierophant. Nine of Cups has just tripped out while I was shuffling cards there. It feels like a tremendous release of the past. That's what this feels like. And it's so powerful. You know, at some point, that bird there was at the bottom of this, you know, and it was swarmed over by all of this darkness, these dark birds, small dark birds, but covering them to the point where the white, you know, light of the bird was somewhat, if not entirely invisible, then at least certainly largely diminished. But there's power and movement from this, straight up in the air. And now from that vantage point you can see safe places to land, or you can see if there isn't in fact in this area somewhere that's safe to land, and maybe it's time to move off to a different area, you know, geographically, physically, or emotionally. But the Hierophant is about faith. It's about commitment. And it feels like this is you committing to a new path now, whether or not you have a spiritual business. And I really get it, that's a very strong feeling for quite a few of you. Whether or not it is that, there is a sense of a new path now, right? And it is working with others. It's almost like the major sticking points for you, the things that you were holding back on, are the things that you have now processed internally. And from this point on, your lessons will come by way of how other people come in, right? Oh yeah, so okay, that's an interesting point actually. You know, we've got the point before here, and we've got the point after here, right? And before here, what you were prone to do was internalizing, right? And all those things. We've let all of that go, we've elevated, we've moved beyond, and now we're back to dealing with people, but we're back to dealing with people in a new and shiny way, because you're different now. You respond differently. You take, you don't take what they say and use it as a stick to beat yourself with, or even as material to build the mirror that you look in and understand who you are, right? There's a great authenticity shining through this here, Gemini. You are now nurturing yourself. You do see your own value, and more than that, you see the value that you present to other people. The two cards that have just come out to clarify the Hierophant here are the Queen of Pentacles and Strength, right? That's growth. That's your soul growth there, right? And it's not about wrestling lions, right? It's about that soft power, being able to exert the soft power over something wild and taking care of yourself, right? Faith. I'm seeing faith in yourself is the thing that you were supposed to be learning here, and learn it you have. I think you've been a very diligent student, so much so that now the pupil becomes the master and all that, right? You want to take the ball and you want to run with it. Do you know what, right, I did a couple of years ago, I started going to a forest yoga class in the city, right, not far away. I was to go on a Wednesday afternoon, and it was very cool, right? Just an hour-long class, and I signed up for a 2.5 hour yoga inversions class, right? I was like, it's mint, gonna learn to stand on my head and everything, right? It'd be cool. And I actually had a bit of an epic meltdown when I left that 2.5 hour yoga class to to the point where I think I probably had something approaching an emotional breakdown. Like that weekend, it was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back on a few things that had been going on that week. And so much came out in my head after that it took me 4 months before I'd go back to that class. And like I won't bore you with the details of what happened, but it was alarming, right? What was going on in my head after I left that class. And I went and spoke to the chap, right, who took the class beforehand. Actually started teaching yoga because he had brain cancer, right, about 6 years before, and he found yoga incredibly helpful during that time. I wanted to pass it on, right? And I sat and I explained to him that when I left his class, I wanted to burn the fucking world down. Like, I actually don't know how I got home, because I was filled with a rage that I had never experienced before in my life, and it terrified the shit out of me. And he said, right, because in forest yoga they hold the poses for so much longer, right? You tend to hold it for up to 10 breaths with that one. What you do is you create that perfect moment of stillness, and anything that you've ever been fighting ever in your life just pops to the surface like a bubble, you know? And this is particularly common with people who have, you know, traumatic or abusive pasts. And I was like, hey. And I said, well, sorry, it's taken me 4 months to process all the stuff that came out there. And he said, oh, it's fine. He said, have you ever considered being a yoga teacher? And I went, what? And he said, it's a funny thing. He said, I go to a yoga conference every year. He said, and basically what we do at that yoga conference is we get together and we talk about how fucking terrible our lives have been, about the trauma, about the abuse, about all the really difficult things that completely fucked us up. And then we discovered yoga. He said, and it's a really interesting thing. Yoga teachers are the most fucked up individuals you will ever meet in your life, but they found yoga and it helped them, and they wanted to help other people, so they become yoga teachers. I don't know why I've told you that story, but it feels like it might be, you know, relevant for some of you. Whatever you have gone through, whatever it is that's assisted you in the release of that trauma, there is now, the energy is pointing towards it being potentially something that you could do to help other people with. Now, if you have no intention of doing that, if you're not interested in becoming a yoga teacher or, you know, counsellor, astrologer, tarot reader, whatever, you know, then I think just the new improved version of Gemini that is out in the world is teaching by example. And there's a humble confidence that's coming off you, Gemini. And I really like it because it feels authentic, it feels comfortable with who you are. That's wonderful. So much cards of advice, Gemini. Can I make it up? It's insanely awesome. So, cards of advice. At the bottom of the deck we have the 3 of Wands. That is a card for me of manifestation, right? It talks about, well, if the 2 of Wands is the crossroads energy, deciding what you're going to do logistically. The 3 of Wands is when you actually put that into practice. It's about going after the things that you want. It's about thinking about the future and then acting now in order to pull that future towards you, right? Beautiful rainbow things going on again. But what we have for advice is first the Daughter of Pentacles, which is the page. It's another page for you. It's another new start. It's the first rung on something, and it's Pentacles, so it's practical stuff. You know, it's resources. It could well be work, or it could be money, or it could be, you know, time, care, energy, effort. All of these things fall under, you know. But there's something new, right? And you've got Bambi legs about it a little bit. It's a pull, and I feel like it's an intuitive pull towards something, and you're kind of slightly indecisive about it at the moment because the confidence is coming, the comfort is there, but you're not entirely sure. ponder on it a little bit more, but I think that you're getting ready to move on it, right? Start maybe doing the groundwork on it, and you're going to know what it is. If this reading is for you, then that idea has been percolating around for you a little bit. We've got the Two of Cups again. It's the second time that's come out for you, right? Your relationships at this point are really important, and not necessarily romantic relationships. Let us not like leap to that straight away. It's about finding your tribe. And I think that as you have elevated, some people have fallen away from you, and others have come in. Now, it's not to say that it's because these other people don't resonate at your frequency and they fuck off. Like, everybody's on their own path and they're doing their own thing, right? And if there are people that have left your life, then it is because your paths are now diverging and you're going off on different routes. You have different things to do. You have, in fact, learned from each other everything that you needed to learn. But going forwards, there are new people coming in, right? And a new tribe, a new type of person. And I feel very strongly, because we're coming back to here now in these two cards, that these ones are the ones who are going to help you navigate these mountains moving forwards, right? The final card that you've got, the one that made me chuckle, is the Magician. Now for me, that is the card of Gemini, right? Abracadabra literally means I create as I speak. And so for me, I know other readers say it's a Virgo card, and I just cannot get my head around that at all. Like, it just doesn't work for me as a card. But Gemini, it does. I create as I speak, right? Just as you created a difficult place for you to live in for a while, where you were internalizing things and talking to yourself in a particular way, you now have a correspondingly strong power to be able to bring anything that you want towards you, to achieve anything that you want to do. You know, you've got all the tools, they're literally there at your disposal. And it's the card of Gemini, right? This kind of feels to me like the only thing that you really need to concentrate on fully is just showing up in the world as you, as Gemini, right? Because it's your authenticity is what's needed, and things will come to you as and when required. But you've kind of done the deep work, you've done the hard work. It's also the counterpart of the High Priestess as well. So another, like, as within, so without. The High Priestess has got all the inner stuff in. The Magician, he's here with the Hierophant to help you bring that into reality moving forward. I think that's absolutely magnificent, Gemini. I love it. I genuinely do love it. It's awesome. Right, I'm going to leave it there. If the message has resonated with you, I would love it if you would consider subscribing or like the channel, all that kind of thing. And thank you again for waiting. I know this is late. By way of explanation, it was my twin's birthday, 8th birthday this weekend, and I only had your video left to do the night before, and I was like, it's okay, I'll get up super early. And Chris, the twins don't get out of bed until about 8:30, something like that. I'll get up super early and I'll go and make the video. I got up at 6:30 and they were already up and awake and ready. I don't know why I thought it would be any different, but it was. And then I had all of that day, and then the next day I completely forgot that I hadn't completed all of the videos, and so it was somebody messaging me to prompt me to do it. Mortifyingly embarrassing, but there we are. So I'm really sorry. I did not leave you this long because I hate you, because I love you all. It's more just because I'm really, really tired at the moment. Look at this state of me. So I beg your forgiveness. I'm sure you'll give it, because you're all like totes elevated and shit at the moment. Know that I love you all, and I'll see you very soon.